Okay.
Kia ora and welcome. We often talk about political reform and the need for our politicians to deliver on their promises. We want our MPs to be more transparent, approachable, and to walk the talk. At the same time, we also talk about youth empowerment and their increased participation in public life. Why do our youth feel disengaged and disillusioned with playing a greater role in politics and in public life? What changes need to be brought about in encouraging more young people to take part in the political sphere and thereby make a visible difference? With Phil Goff's recent election as the Mayor of Auckland, the Mt Roskill parliamentary seat has fallen vacant, pending a by-election on 3rd December. To talk with me today about the role of young people in politics and governance is Labour Party's nominee for the Mt Roskill parliamentary seat, the young and dynamic Michael Wood.
Thank you, Prakash.
Michael, thank you for joining me and taking time out from your very busy campaign schedule. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for the nice introduction.
That's fine, that's wonderful. Let me straight away start by asking you, my first question. Why do young people, why should they care about what happens at Parliament and what their MPs do?
Well, there's an old saying which says, you might not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And the fact of the matter is that the decisions that are made within our political system affect everyone's lives. I'm a great believer in the idea that politics is actually really important. It gets a bad rap sometimes, but what is politics in the end? It's about how we make decisions and distribute resources in our society. So it goes to jobs and wages, education and health, transport, all of these things which every day affect people. And if people aren't involved in the process, that doesn't mean decisions won't get made, it just means someone else will make those decisions. So if you truly believe in democracy, you want as many people as possible to be engaged, not just in voting, but within our broader democracy and decision-making processes.
Wonderful, thanks for that frank sharing. So what does Parliament and our MPs need to do differently to represent young people more effectively and to ensure that they hear from young people? Because that's a grievance which many young people have, that our politicians don't care.
Yeah, it's a really important question for our political system to get its head around, because it's an issue not just here in New Zealand, but across the Western democracies, is people's disengagement from politics, or from party politics and parliamentary politics, most especially with young people. So at the most recent local government elections, over 65s, about 80% voted. Under 30s, about 20% voted. Real problem. I think there are two main things. The first one is, I reckon, it's not that young people don't care about politics. Because if you look at things like a couple of years ago, we had 40,000 mainly young people marching down Queen Street to try and stop mining in our national parks. Young people are engaging with politics and issues differently. 30 years ago, the big political parties had 100,000 members. People joined parties, people joined unions, people joined churches in big numbers and then stayed with those institutions. These days, I think people want to engage with issues more rather than just sticking with a big party or a big institution. So I think that we as parties and politicians need to adapt to that and give more flexibility for young people to come and engage, maybe head off and do something else again, and then keep a relationship up.
Right. And to make that work, do you think our system of voting and representation needs to change so that we better accommodate, young voters? And what can be improved regarding this field?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the main thing is around the issues and around engaging people in a positive way. The actual system of voting that we have, there are some things you can do around the edges. You can, for example, move to electronic voting, and I'm very comfortable with that as long as we make sure it's absolutely secure. We're not quite certain of that yet, because if you have an insecure system, your whole democracy is undermined. So you have to get that right first. That could potentially open it up. But I don't think the issue is just about the technical aspects of the system. I think it's people's broader dissatisfaction with parliamentary politics. And that's what we've got to change by engaging better on the issues, making people feel like they can actually have some real input instead of just sending someone to Wellington, feeling like you don't hear from them for 3 years and they come and ask for your vote. That's what puts people off.
Right. Thanks for that. So, what are some of the key challenges that our youth are facing, and what steps will you take to address them if elected?
Yeah. Look, the number one thing that young people speak to me about by a huge margin is housing. Because here in Auckland, if you're, say, someone who's just come out of university or tech or whatever, you're facing $1 million to buy a house, and it just makes it impossible. If you're in the rental market, the prices are going up, the standards are low, and housing is just the most basic bit of security that people want. So that is the absolute number one thing that I'm focused on, and that young people tell me we need to make some major changes in this area.
Sure. And a slightly different question. What is being done specifically to encourage and integrate youth of Maori descent and from certain disadvantaged backgrounds to take interest in politics and community development?
Yes, yeah. So within Labour we've got a really strong focus on our relationship with Māori. We've got a relationship that goes back about 80 years when Michael Joseph Savage made an agreement with the Ratana Church. That's gone through some ups and downs. But that's a big focus for us. We hold 6 of the 7 Māori seats at the moment. I think the issues are broadly similar in terms of people not necessarily having huge confidence in the parliamentary system, but then within Māoridom in New Zealand, that's overlaid with issues around sovereignty, around the fact that we're moving to a post-treaty settlement era. We're in an era where I think Māori are saying, we don't just want you to do things to us, we want you to do things with us. And actually those post-settlement iwi now have huge resources. They're wanting to have a say in planning and shaping their own future and their own economic development. And I think that's one of the big changes in New Zealand politics over the next 20 years. So I think we need to work constructively with Māori, not, as I say, not just to say this is what we're going to do to you, but how do we actually share leadership and governance in our country.
Thanks for that. Michael, what are the main priorities that Labour Party has towards youth development before the next elections of 2017? Because by November 2017, we need to have the next election. So what are some of the priorities?
Yeah. So before the next election, it really is just, I think, about engaging people in these huge issues that we've got before us around housing, around transport, around in Auckland, the whole way our city is going to develop and grow. We've just made these huge changes in the unitary plan. It's going to shape the way our city is in 30 or 40 years' time. So engaging young people in those issues, and then actually kind of connecting up about the fact that these are political issues, and we want you to be involved, we want you to be part of our campaigns, we want you to be telling us what you think and helping us to shape the future. And so, for example, in our Mt Roskill campaign, we had our campaign committee meeting in this room last week. Everyone in that campaign committee is, I'm the oldest one at 36, so we're making a really active effort to say to young people, we're open, we want your input, we're not going to have boring meetings that last for 2 hours and it's just the old guys talking. We want to hear what you want to do and how we shape our campaigns and shape the future.
That's wonderful, fairly ambitious and something which can be done as well. So
I believe so.
Yeah. My next 2 questions are questions that I've got from young people, and I actually asked several young people to send me their questions, and I've selected 2 for you.
Right.
And the first one is from Shannon, and who turned 18 recently, and she's a new voter. And she wants to know, is New Zealand's education system teaching us enough about civics, about our rights, our duties, about citizenship?
Yeah, I think it could be doing much more. There's already a component in the New Zealand curriculum around that, but when we see that young people are quite disengaged from the formal political system, when turnout rates are so low, I think you've got to say, can we do this better? And I'm quite sure that we can. And I think what you've got to do with that stuff is not just sort of make it, here's a lesson in the classroom, but how could you actually actively get young people to experience what it's like to be involved in a democracy, getting them finding an issue that they care about and writing submissions around it, going and presenting to the local council about something they want done in their local park, writing letters to the editor, going to protest. I think that's the kind of stuff that is actually engaging and makes people feel like they're part of something. So I think there's more we could do, but I think it will be in that space rather than formal curriculum.
Right. So basically, getting them involved in activism, advocacy, starting a revolution.
Bernie Sanders starting a revolution.
Yeah.
And this is what I really believe. Democracy is not just voting once every 3 years. It's about how all of us shape the society that we live in through our actions with each other.
Yeah.
And those things are actually just as important as we vote once every 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. The next question is again from a young person. His name's Andrew, he's 23, he studies and he works. And he wants to ask you, Michael, for a young person, it is often unclear what path they should take to get into politics. Is there a clear pathway into politics? And what should young people do to become more politically sensitized?
Yeah, it can be, there are pathways, but they can be a bit snaking rather than being really clear.
Yeah.
And political parties are often quite set in their ways, and I think historically we haven't done a great job of being open to young people who might want to try things out and do stuff a bit differently. So what I'd really encourage people to do is you do need to make a first step. If you want to get politically engaged, go and meet with some local politicians, ask questions, sort of work out where you sit on the spectrum, and then don't be afraid about putting forward ideas.
Right.
Find some other young people to come in with you, so you've got some support and some backing. Find some people who have maybe been involved for a little bit longer, who can be friends and allies and mentors, who can kind of help you when you've got a question or something goes a bit wrong or you're not sure about something, so that you've got a really good support network. If you want to get really involved in politics, it isn't always easy, that's the truth of it. It can be a bit combative and a bit difficult because there are big issues at stake. But it's how we change things. And if you really believe in what you're doing, if you've got good support, if you link arms with other people, you can make it happen.
It is possible.
So I'd say keep in there, and if anyone wants to get involved with our campaign, we will welcome them with open arms, and I'm sure there'll be lots of other politicians who will say the same.
Wonderful, wonderful. Which brings me to my final question for you, Michael. And what is your message to the youth of New Zealand, as potentially the next elected MP from Roskill, in terms of youth development and their potential role in politics? And to give this answer, if I can ask you to speak into the camera and just speak to the youth of New Zealand and tell them your visions, your plans, your dreams for the youth.
Yeah, look, what I would say, guys, is that this is your country, this is your city, this is your community, and it's up to you to step forward and shape it. There's a great US president, JFK, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And that's actually what our democracy is about. It's not about sitting back passively and waiting for things to happen. It's about people collectively fighting for the things that they believe in and making changes. That's what getting involved in politics is about. But bad decisions sometimes get made, politicians say and do stupid things, that's kind of part of life. But don't let that shape your perceptions of our political systems, because good things happen. Think about things like the civil rights movement in the USA, the way Barack Obama got elected in 2008, marriage equality that we achieved 3 years ago, the fact that New Zealand's nuclear free, the fact that we have free public health and mainly free public education. Those things happened because people stood up and got involved in the political system. So what do you believe in? What do you want to see in our country, in our city over the next 10 or 20 years? The way that you can make those things happen is by working with other people and getting involved in politics. So I say step up. I'd love to work with you and so would other people. Make it happen.
Michael, thank you. Thank you for your very deep, insightful responses. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I wish you all the best for the upcoming by-elections.
Thank you, Prakash. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was Prakash Jacob from Unitec Mount Albert in conversation with Michael Ward at his campaign office. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.